guys? Welcome to another edition of Texans Unfiltered. We are blessed to be joined by Antonio Cromartie. David, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk with me today. I'm super excited to talk to you. I see a potential cornerback one.
Can move very well, can play man-to-man very well.
I think that he is a better quarterback than Patrick Mahomes.
He does things that are so amazing, and the competitor in him is just special.
I'm excited, man, and I can't wait to get there. I think it does really fit my skill set.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to another edition of Texans Unfiltered. My name is Patrick Storm, and I am joined by my friend and co-host, Jair Lopez. Jair, how are we tonight on this fine Friday?
Doing good, man. Another Texas victory, 2-0. Let's see what happens tomorrow.
Right, yeah, man. You know, it's been a solid preseason for them. They've looked really good. They've gone out there and done some really good things. We saw some really good things last weekend against the Cowboys. We saw some good things the first preseason game, and hopefully it carries into week 3. It still didn't hit me until this week that there was only going to be 3 games, right? Like, so I'm still not really 100% used to that. But I'm excited. You know, I'm excited to see a 17th game this season. You know, get some more regular season football, and just see how it goes. So, what yeah, we need to get James to update this intro video. It's a little outdated. We'll have to talk with him on that. So, Texans Cowboys, AT&T Stadium. How do you think overall? What were your thoughts on the game?
Overall, just looking at the stats, the defense overall, they impressed once again, and they were the main reason why the Texans were able to win this game, simply because they only kept the Dallas offense to 14 points, and that's pretty much been the norm early on. With they only allowed the Packers to score 7 points. So even though the offense hasn't been clicking on all cylinders, the defense has been able to keep them in games, which is pretty ironic.
Yeah, I mean it's almost like they flipped the script, right, from last season to this season. Last season, offensively, for the most part, kept them in every single matchup. And so far this preseason, it's been the defense has done, the majority of the carrying. What are they? Let's see. 1, 2. There's 3 interceptions in this game, and I know Lonnie had one. Carter had one. Terrence Brooks had one.
Yeah.
Charles had a strip, and then they had a couple strip sacks or fumble recoveries.
Mm-hmm.
So, go ahead.
Yeah, and I was going to say, last against the Packers, Tremont Smith had an interception, so we have 4 interceptions through just 2 games. Yeah,
they had 9 turnovers the entire season last year. And so far through the preseason, just in 2 games, they've already almost matched that total. And I get it. It's preseason. You got to take everything with a grain of salt. Some of these guys aren't going to be here. But, it's good to see. It's good to see, old school football. These guys are going out there and creating opportunities for the offense. They're doing their job, creating short fields and stuff like that, and keeping the opponent out of the end zone. I like it. I like what Lovie Smith is doing. I love what he's preaching. I love what he's kind of putting in these guys' heads to keep going. So let's just hope they can carry it over into the regular season. So anybody stand out specifically in that game to you?
You want to start like last time on offense, and then we can go to defense? And then...
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. So on offense, I'll probably have to say Mark Ingram. I mean, he only had 7 rushing attempts, but he made the most of it, even though it wasn't the most efficient one. He only had 34 yards and 3.4 yards per carry. He had that 4th down play in the first drive that extended for the offense to get down the field, and then he had the rushing touchdown to capitalize the drive.
Yeah, I mean, I think and that was one thing that stood out to me. Also, we had talked about that last week on the situation. It was the 3rd and 1, and they ran David Johnson instead of one of the other guys, and then in this situation, a 4th and short yardage situation, and Cully risks it, and he puts Ingram out there, and Ingram Ravel, I think it was a 3-yard carry or something like that on that play, picked up the first down.
Mhm.
So that was good. It was good to see Cully take that chance. This is the time to take those chances and get those looks and see what your offensive line is going to do if they can create that push just to pick up a yard or two and keep that drive alive. And it was nice to see Ingram get in there, get small, and get through the hole and pick up the necessary yardage and then some to keep that drive going. So that was really good. I like that. I've kind of changed my mind on him actually making the team. At first, I wasn't really seeing the spot, but I think, and as we'll touch on later on, I think he's definitely earned a spot, and I think he's going to see a lot more playing time than what I originally anticipated.
Right.
So, what about on the defense side of the ball?
Yeah, there's not too much to talk about on the offense besides that first drive. But the defense, man, they were all over the field. They were all over the place. They had, Charles Menahu, who really stood out. They were moving him inside and out from the defensive line. And I like those little stunts that they were running with Jacob Martin and a Menahu. That pretty much stood out to me. And also DeMarcus Walker, who he hasn't been the most popular name in the first 2 games, but he's been having a very, silent but productive first 2 games. He only has 1 sack, which he got against Dallas, but he's been getting to the quarterback, and he's one of those players that he can also play inside and out like a Menahu. And he might be one of those players who might sneak his way into the final roster.
Yeah, and like you said, he's only got 1 sack, but I think this is kind of like what Jordan preaches, is that the film doesn't lie. Some of these guys, while their name isn't showing up on the stat sheet, if you go back and watch the film, they're getting to the backfield, they're creating pressure and stuff like that. So they're creating opportunities for other guys. Charles has been the beneficiary of a few of them. He's gotten a couple sacks already in the preseason from guys forcing the quarterback to him. And so it's one of those things. Yeah, like you said, he's only got the 1 sack. Again, it's not showing up on the stat sheet, but the coaches are going to go back and they're going to notice that type of stuff on film. And those are the type of guys you're going to want. You're going to want that pressure in the backfield all the time to create opportunities, because it may not be him getting the sack, but it may get, it may be somebody else. It's kind of like the year Jared Crick a couple years ago had a really good season, rambled off a couple sacks and everything like that. It wasn't because he was out there blowing offensive linemen off the ball. It's because J.J. Watt was forcing people into his hands, and he was the beneficiary. It got him, a nice little payday in Denver, and so that's one of those things. That's complimentary football, as Bill O'Brien likes to preach, right? That's going out there and doing everything right, and you come out on the good side of things. So,
and just to add to that real quick,
yeah, go ahead.
A lot of times you have a player, who like creates the havoc, creates the pressure, but you also need that defender to finish the play. And a lot of times last year we didn't have that other player, so maybe we don't have a lot of Batmans this year, but we have a lot of Robins. So
yeah,
who knows? Maybe that might help a little bit in terms of we won't be elite, but we might be solid enough in certain areas where we might be a little bit better than last year, or a lot better considering how bad we were last year.
For sure. I mean, like you said, seven turnovers already in the 2 games. Man, if they can go out and just get 2 turnovers a game, if they can get 1 turnover a game, and almost double the output from last year, I'll be super happy. I'll be over the moon, man. I really will be. All right, so they've got Tampa Bay tomorrow night, defending Super Bowl champs, a team that brought back every single person, right? Every single person they had on the roster last year. They ended up bringing them back. And so they're going to look to repeat. Still a very talented team over there, very talented coaching staff. And then they're going against a team that's projected to, by a lot of experts, go winless or 2 wins, 1 win, and have the number 1 overall pick next year. So what are some things you're looking for in this game as a team for them to do against a team of Tampa Bay's caliber?
Pretty much, I'll mainly be focused on the offense. I feel like the defense, they've showed enough throughout the first 2 games that we kind of know what they're going to be. Obviously, they're not going to be an elite defense because, the personnel doesn't dictate that. We don't have, like I said, we don't have star players on the defense, but we have solid players that might be able to string together an average defense if the cards play right. And, if they stay healthy, there's no COVID problems, too many COVID outbreaks, anything like that. But mostly the offense overall, because I have the stats from the last 2 games,
Mhm.
and we only have 3 touchdowns in the 2 games, they've all been rushing touchdowns. We've had 0 passing touchdowns throughout the first 2 games.
So we're starting to put out the David Culley Ravens wide receiver core from a few years ago where they had no touchdowns.
Yeah, man, that's what it seems like.
Oh boy. I mean, it's early, and there's a lot of wide receivers, right? They're still building chemistry with Tyrod, and he hasn't. I don't know. He doesn't have a whole lot of snaps so far in the preseason. And Davis has gone out there and looked like a rookie.
Right. I have the stats right here for Tyrod Taylor throughout the first 2 games. I mean, obviously, the first game he only played the first drive against the Packers, in which he got a field goal, and then in the first drive against the Cowboys, it was a short field, they got that rushing touchdown by Ingram. But the stats overall, he's 6 for 9 for 50 yards, 66 completion. So he hasn't really thrown the football a lot, and there's obviously the expectation for him to play most of the game against Tampa Bay. So we'll probably see more than beyond that sample size.
Now, do you think a lot of it is them kind of keeping the offense very vanilla right now to not put too much of maybe this new style that Tim Kelly and those guys are going to roll out there? Tim Kelly, Pep Hamilton, and David Culley have come together and put together, potentially a new offense, something that's not going to be nearly as quarterback centric as what we've seen, given who should be taking the snaps this year. Do you think that's part of it, though, that the reason why they're not throwing the ball so much right now is they're just keeping it very basic?
Yeah, that plays a big role. And also, I think it's also been the rotating chairs or at wide receiver, because Brandon Cooks, he missed the first game, and then he played the second game. And then Nico Collins, he played the first game, but he missed the second game. So it's kind of been like we haven't seen the whole group of wide receivers healthy or all, suited up to play. So hopefully this upcoming, for tomorrow at least, we can see all the receivers healthy and active.
Yeah, it'll be good. I want to see Nico. I want to see a lot of Nico. I want to see how they can incorporate him with guys like Conley, with guys like with Cooks. I want to see how they can use Kiki. I really wish Miller was healthy. So there's some things that are going to be left up to the imagination of how Anthony Miller would fit in on this offense. But I hope we get a heavy dose of Nico Collins in there with those guys, just to see how he's gonna do it, because he's going against a good secondary and with Tampa. So I'd be it's very intriguing to see if a rookie mid-round pick can come in and put up some decent numbers, build some chemistry with his quarterback, and establish himself in the league as a potential threat. So that's what I'm looking forward to. That, and also, and then running backs.
Exactly. You just read my mind. I was gonna say, because the first game against the Packers, we did a decent job at running the ball, but then against Dallas, it was where we kind of struggled. So, and we actually played more of the first team offense. But I have the stats right here for the running backs to see. So right now, the player that has had the most carries has been Scotty Phillips. He's had 17 rushing attempts, 82 yards, 4.8 yards per carry and a rushing touchdown. And then the second one is Buddy Howell. He had 13 rushing attempts, 51 yards, and 3.9 yards per carry. And then it was Philip Lindsay. He had 9 rushing attempts, 16 yards, 1.77 yards per carry, which is pretty bad. And then we got
terrible.
Yeah. And then we got Mark Ingram, who had 7 rushing attempts, 24 yards, and 3.4 yards per carry. So throughout the first 2 games, most of the runs have been going to the backups, the players who are competing for a roster spot. And then we also have David Johnson, who I forgot to mention, but he has 1 carry for -1 yard throughout the first 2 games, and he didn't have a single rushing attempt against the Dallas Cowboys.
So let's touch on that real quick, because our friends over at 610, Sean and Seth, kind of touched on this the other day. And Sean is convinced that David is one of the guys that does not make this team. Would that shock you at all?
It wouldn't shock me in terms of the talent perspective, because we have better running backs than David Johnson. He's probably, if we took away the name and we just show the stats or the production, he wouldn't make this team. Obviously now from financial perspective, it seems he's almost a lock. Because he's earning what, close to $4 million this year guaranteed.
Yeah, so they doubled his guaranteed money when they restructured him.
And also, I was going to say this. I mean, I'm not defending him because there's not really much to defend. But most of the snaps he saw in Dallas were like passing situations. So he wasn't really asked to run the football. He was running routes or staying in pass protection. So I feel if he does make this team, that's going to be his main priority. He's going to be a receiving option, and mostly just on passing plays, which is isn't the best, it's not the most ideal considering he's a running back. He's not a receiver.
Mm-hmm.
But if he makes this roster, it'll probably be more as a receiving option.
So a situational back that's not going to really be. He's not going to be in their short yardage situations unless they're going to, dial up some stuff out of the backfield on passing. So kind of like what we talked about last week, where we feel like he's a better option out of the backfield as the pass catching running back versus the guy that needs to be running it between the tackles.
Exactly.
Man, I don't know. I kind of agree the fact that I just take away the fact that he was part of the Hopkins trade, right? Like that's an unfair, thing that he carries. Like he carries that burden from a fan perspective because he was a part of that trade, right? And it's not like, it just sucks because now you've got to weigh that thought, right? Like Nick, one thing that Nick hasn't done yet has been pressured by the media and pressured by the fans. He's done what Nick feels like is the best thing for this team. And my opinion is not having David Johnson on this roster, regardless of the financial aspect. I understand they're going to carry $4 million in dead cap. It's like 4.2. They only get like a $500,000 cap savings. I'm okay with that. See if you can move him. See if you can trade him for a 5th or a 6th round pick. Go out and get a day 3 pick, get him off the books, and move on and just be done with it. Get something for him, But then again, teams may be looking at it as, okay, if they're shopping him, he's on the bubble, so we just wait and then we sign him to I don't know if he's eligible for vet minimum or not.
And I think we all know where he's going to go. I think he's going to go to Tampa, and reunite with Bruce Arians, who he had the most success with.
Yeah, it'd be a great spot for him, because he would not have to be the workhorse over there at all. He could be the guy, like we've been saying, a situational guy. They can draw up some design plays for him, and Tom can just dump him the ball, little 3-4 routes, 3-4 yard routes, and that'd be it. He's going to rack up 400 yards receiving and a couple touchdowns and earn his $4 million this year, and have a chance at a Super Bowl. So
the biggest thing with him too is if he's not making the roster. I mean, we'll touch on this later, but who would you see as his potential? Like, who would you see making the roster over him?
Scotty.
Yeah,
so I think they carry 4 still.
Mm-hmm.
Lindsey, Ingram, Scotty, and Buddy. They just have this love affair with Buddy Howell and his special teams ability. But he's shown some decent stuff. And, when he was called upon late in the season to rush the ball, he's not afraid to lower his shoulders and take some hits. So I can see them carrying those 4. And maybe unless no, not Rex. I don't think Rex makes a team.
Really?
Yeah.
That was going to be my.
That was going to carry 5 running backs.
Mm-hmm. I would have gone, if in the scenario that we get rid of David Johnson, I would have gone with the first 3: Ingram, Lindsey, and Scotty,
mm-hmm.
and then I would bring Rex Burkhead, because for me, he kind of reminds me a little of David Johnson. He's not the best runner, but he's a decent receiver out of the backfield, and he
mm-hmm.
plays special teams, so he gives you that dimension as a receiver that David Johnson gives you, but he also plays special teams.
But you do that over Buddy Howell, who's a lot younger.
I would say yes, because even they've been giving him a lot of carries throughout this preseason to kind of sway them, convince the coaching staff that he's the better option. But I feel like Scotty Phillips has really outplayed him. So then it would kind of come down to, okay, you can be a special teams player, but what else do you offer besides that? Because you're not going to get the ball as a runner. So can you be a pass catcher out of the backfield in certain situations? And in that case, I feel Rex Burkhead has him beat.
Okay.
But that's just my opinion. I could see it going either way.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it just comes down to I think we'll know more tomorrow.
Yeah, for sure.
Honestly, I think once the game gets rolling and through about the third quarter is when you're going to kind of see who they feel like they have at that position, I feel like. So with tomorrow, like we said, we're expecting to see a heavy dose of who we feel like are going to be the starters for the bulk of the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then hopefully we see some guys that are on the fringe, that are on the roster bubble that we've, hopefully to try to earn their spot. So let's dive into that. Let's dive into the roster and who we feel like the starters are going to be. And then who you would think the cuts are going to be. So I think we know, and I don't get this. I'm looking at their depth chart right now. They have Jeff Driscoll as a second quarterback over Davis Mills.
But I wouldn't look too much into it because,
yeah, I
Davis
don't think
Mills,
that means anything.
He's been playing. Yeah, he's been playing the most in the preseason because in the first game he played most of the first quarter outside of the first drive, and he played all the second quarter. And then against Dallas, I believe he played the second quarter and he played the third quarter. So Driscoll, he's been playing very minimal. So because they've been trying to see what Davis Mills has to offer, and that's probably the best thing moving forward because we know Driscoll's not going to make the roster, or he shouldn't at least.
And if he does, he'll be buried third, and he'll never see the field. It's and that's okay. All right, so the wide receiver group, obviously Brandon Cooks, Chris Conley, Nico. Who else makes that group?
So you said Cooks, Conley, and Collins, right? You said 3 of them, right?
Those 3 are a lock, right?
Okay, yeah.
Maybe Chris Moore.
Oof, that's tough. I'd probably say Kiki if Anthony Miller if he's not ready to go week 1, which kind of seems to be the case.
He won't be.
Yeah, I don't think he is. I would probably go with Kiki as the slot receiver.
Okay.
Because I have 6 in the for right now. So for me, it's Cooks, Conley, Collins, Kiki, Roberts, and Moore.
Okay. And did you say Erickson?
No.
No.
But I was gonna say
you have like a little crush on him.
I do, simply because he's I don't know. He can do a little bit of everything. He can play. I'm a big advocate in special teams. I feel like because those type of players at the end of the roster, if you're not seeing the field on offense or defense, you gotta be able to contribute on special teams. And then, especially with COVID and injuries going on this year, say I don't want Desmond King to be our returner because I don't want him to get hurt. So in that case, I would prefer to have a player that's not a focal point on either side of the ball to be a returner. But the biggest thing from the players I listed is Andre Roberts, because I mentioned last week he hasn't been practicing lately or at all. It's already been 2 games he's missed, and I'm kind of just wondering to myself, what's really going on with that? Is he injured? Are they just placing him in bubble wrap so he won't get hurt, or is he just not expected to make the final roster?
See, that's the thing though. Like, I don't think as a team, like even with they've already made 10 moves right down to get to 80 players, and if it was that obvious where they don't even want to play him because they don't feel like he's going to make the final roster, why wouldn't he have been a part of the original cuts, right? Like the first 5 or the second 5. I feel like there's a legitimate injury there, and they're trying to see where they can get him before the season, whether they put him on IR, because his contract's fairly cheap, right?
No, it's actually, I was going to say that he has $2 million guaranteed, so they can't just cut him. I mean, $2 million is not too much, but considering he's just a returner, I think,
is it a 1-year deal?
I think it's 2.
God, why would we sign a 33-year-old to a 2-year deal?
And at the time, it looked like a decent deal because he was an All-Pro returner last year, but age is kind of up there. And then I kind of quickly realized we got several players who had returning ability on this roster. We got Erickson, who led the league as a rookie, I believe, in kick return yards. And then we also have Desmond King, who's a former All-Pro returner. So
I hate that idea of him being a returner, though.
Yeah, and he's an All-Pro at it, so I understand there's value to him, but I feel he's gonna bring more value on the defense on a very thin cornerback group. So I think it's important that we keep him in that role, and that's why I don't really want him to return, even though he might be the better player throughout the first 2 games. Even though it's a small sample size, I feel we got to see what Erickson has to offer, or even Roberts if he's available for tomorrow.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, I don't want Desmond King doing it because it reminds me of back when oh man, now I'm drawing a blank on his name. The safety that we had whenever we signed him with Jonathan Joseph too.
Daniel Manning,
right? So Daniel Manning had that ability to be the returner, and we saw he did it a few times. Heck, he did it in that Patriots game in the playoffs that 1 year. It was just lights out at it. But I think they're just risking too much potential for injury then with him, and they need him in the secondary. And I know it's football, and injuries are going to happen. But I don't think that's something you do. There's too many other guys that can fill that need.
Especially if you paid Roberts $2 million to guarantee. You don't pay someone $2 million to not make the roster.
And maybe it's a case of they feel like that they know what he's capable of, and they know what he's going to do, and being who he is and what his role is going to be, is there hasn't been a whole lot of attention from the media placed on him that he's just doing work on the side field or something like that. Just maintaining conditioning and stuff like that. Just given his age, 2 past injuries that, no need to bring, any of that, bringing any of that up to light and potentially lose him for the year off of preseason game doing returns when you already know what he's capable of. So maybe it's a case of that.
Yeah. So my 6 were those. Were yours any different?
Man, I got a lot of pushback from the chat on Chris Moore. So Cooks, Conley, Nico, VC. So that's 4. I think Kiki makes it until Anthony Miller is healthy. So that's 5. And I'll go with Erickson.
Okay, so I
think Anthony Miller gets put on IR. Like they'll carry him on the initial roster, put him on IR, let him get healthy, bring him back after week 3.
And you're saying no Roberts?
Kiki gets cut. Yeah.
And you're
no Roberts.
No Roberts. Okay.
I don't think Nick's afraid to carry the, admit a mistake in a contract like that. It's $2 million. Next year they save $2 million. They're only carrying $500,000, I think it is, in dead money. The salary cap's expected to go up a tiny bit. I think they'll be okay.
I'll go into this later because I want to speak about Cacerio, but let's go with the roster first.
Okay. So moving on, wide receivers, tight ends. This is going to be an interesting group for me. And James kind of hinted at it earlier in the week with Akins. But I got to roll with Farrow, Auclair, and Brevin. Those are my 3. I don't think they carry 4.
Okay. So
I think something happens with Jordan.
I totally agree with that. I'm going based on my roster that was posted earlier in the week. Mm-hmm. This was before James said all of that, because I had that thought in my mind, but I was thinking to myself, there's no way they go through with it. But considering that he has barely any guaranteed money, I believe he's only going to make like $2 million this year.
Yeah,
they can. I mean, he's pretty affordable. They can easily move him. Maybe not easily, but I feel like in the right team, the right team could probably give up a 5th, or even like a 6th or a 7th, preferably a 5th if we're going to move him. And I was kind of saying it earlier after the pod dropped with James saying that he's pretty much the type of tight end that NFL teams are looking for. He's a mismatch against slower defenders and linebackers. Like he has the talent, just his production hasn't really been there since he's been here. And part of it can be because of injuries, because of the bad, coaching that all goes into it. But
let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah.
Will Lawling was the tight end coach, right, for Akins' entire time. Will Lawling was a guy that had been with Bill. That was a Bill hire. Will Lawling has 0 background in tight ends. He was a defensive coach, defensive player. The guy had no business coaching tight ends. It's the same thing as the offensive line coach. God, I can't even think of his name now because I hate him so much.
Mike Devlin.
Like, they had no business coaching the positions they coached. So, yeah, maybe that's part of it. Maybe that's part of the reason why Akins kind of struggled. Maybe that's kind of the reason why Jordan Thomas failed to pick up the offense. Bad coaching can potentially ruin some of these guys' careers. I'm not going to make that excuse for Kahali Waring just because this guy just can't stay healthy. But I never saw the point of having Will Long as head end coach. Sorry, little rant.
No, I agree. I completely agree. And that's the thing with so many of these players that are coming from the Bill O'Brien years. We just don't know which players really do have talent and which ones just suck because we didn't have competent coaching the last few years. So we don't, unless you were like a first round pick like Will Fuller or like those players that we just knew they were going to be really good players like Titus Howard or McKinney. You know, those other players, they're pretty much 50-50 shots to like either you're going to be really good or you're going to struggle a lot. Like, you know, Braxton Miller, Jalen Strong, Kahali Waring, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of guys, even Kiki. I think Kiki, like, I still don't feel like he makes this team or doesn't make, you know, he's not here the entire season, but I think Kiki was a victim of that. A victim of Bill O'Brien, a victim of coaching, and just the mentality just wasn't there for the guy, and things just didn't work out. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he comes in and completely just blows the lid off the slot receiver position this year and makes me look like a fool. Wouldn't be the first player, so we'll see. All right. Offensive line. So Tunsil, yes. Sharping, yes. Britt, McCray, Titus, Charlie, Toner, Taylor. Dang, this sucks. Cannon.
Okay. So
I think they go with 9 just because of injuries.
yeah. So I have 9 as well. I have Tunsil. I'm going to go with the offensive tackles first. I have Tunsil, Heck, Cannon if he's healthy, if he's clear from the PUP list, and Jerron Christian. And then from the guards, I have Sharping, Titus, and Lane Taylor, with the contingency that he's clear from the PUP list.
Mm-hmm.
And then both of my centers are going to be it's going to be Britt and McCray.
Okay. So, little nugget for everybody. They're hoping to potentially get Cannon for tomorrow and see if he can play at least 15 snaps. That's the hope right now. No guarantee it'll happen, but that's definitely a possibility. So you may see Marcus Cannon activated for the game tomorrow to get a few snaps. So we'll see.
Quick question. Do you think there's any way he doesn't make the final roster?
I think if he can't get healthy, yeah.
Because he has no guaranteed money. He's going to earn like $6 million. So, I doubt it.
Unless he's going to restructure, but I don't know. If he can't get healthy, there's no point in carrying him on the roster. Absolutely no point. And I don't remember the expanded practice squads, and I know they changed the rules last year where guys of certain, accrued seasons could still go on the practice squad, and I don't know if he's eligible.
I think he is because they're basically bringing back the same
rules as last year, right?
Exactly. So it's 16 players, and I believe it's 4 protected players, if not 6, but I think it's 4. So
okay.
Maybe he fits that. Exactly. But the only part that kind of frustrates me, besides the fact that he's already like 33, he's like in his, he's a 33 or he's like in the early 30s. But last year he was an opt-out. So, and then he still found a way to have a foot surgery, so like you had a whole year to like, maintain your body.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to, like go in on the guy, who, injuries happen, but you're already in your 30s and then you get hurt.
in a year that you didn't even play.
Exactly. So I'm just thinking to myself, that's not a good sign. At least I don't know.
I agree.
Yeah.
I do. I don't like. Beige makes a good point. Forrest Lamp's a free agent. Was he? He was released with an injury settlement though. So is he
And I
100%? Like, is he healthy though? That's the thing.
I don't think so.
Maybe they just
And
keep
and I,
tabs on him.
and I was gonna say, I think he may have coincided with James Campen and with the Chargers. So
Yeah, he would have been there.
yeah.
So yeah, well, tomorrow may be an interesting day if they can get Cannon activated before the game, and see if get him some snaps.
And I was gonna say one last point, just to like, the reason why I have McCray at center is because he did play some snaps against Dallas at center, and then they also moved Toner to left guard. He looked terrible, but I was thinking to myself, McCray, he's looked. I'm not gonna say spectacular or amazing, but he's looked decent at guard, and he's had some. It was kind of some mixed reviews at center. I'm not gonna say he was amazing, but the fact that you can move him from center to guard might offer some value to the Texans as a depth piece. Because for me, Toner, he's pretty much just a center.
Yeah, I agree, and it pains me to say that Ryan McCollum doesn't make the team, but I'm pretty sure he'll if given the opportunity, he'll be back in the practice squad.
Yeah,
have that on good authority.
And I think so too, because he beat out Drake Jackson, who was the other center we claimed from the Lions. Mm-hmm. And I feel they're both undrafted players from this draft, so they're pretty much on the same ground. Like, no player had an advantage, so I'm pretty sure they pretty much just let them play and see who had the better camp and preseason. And it seems like McCollum was able to keep his spot.
Definitely. All right, so let's jump over to the defensive line. You want to do tackles or ends first?
Let me go tackles first.
Okay.
So I got Malik Collins, Ross Blacklock, Jaleel Johnson, and Roy Lopez.
Malik,
and then
Ross, Jaleel, Roy.
Yeah. What about you?
Roy for sure. Ross for sure. Jaleel had the fumble recovery, right?
Yeah, he had 2 against Green Bay.
Okay. That's going to go a long way. I think they carry 5. I think the same 4 as you said, and then they go with Vincent Taylor.
Yeah.
No. I think DeMarcus Walker, actually. I think those 5. The 4 you said, Malik, Ross, Johnson, Roy, and DeMarcus Walker.
Okay. I agree. I have him on the roster too. So you want to go edge rusher?
I think that would be the 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, so edge rushers, Jacob Charles, Gernard, Jordan Jenkins, and Whitney.
Those are pretty much the same ones I have. I have Merciless, Jenkins, Morin, and Grenard. So those 4. And then I kind of have like this other group, which I kind of put like defensive end, defensive tackle, which is pretty much Amenahu and DeMarcus Walker, because they can play inside and out. So I kind of feel like they have their own little position, but it's pretty much the same players.
Yeah. And I think the biggest question, especially I've already seen it in the chat from Chris, is Lawson.
I think he's gone.
I think he gets traded.
Yeah.
I don't think he's cut. I think he gets traded. We've seen New York in desperate need right now of edge rushers, and it's a prime candidate for a day 3 pick. Trade them. They'll need them. Maybe you can get a 6th and a 7th for them. Maybe like a 2023 6th and a 2022 7th. and he'll help them out. I know it's not a great trade. It's not the flashy, third or fourth round pick, but he wasn't going to make Miami's roster. Bernard McKinney wasn't going to make our roster. So, I mean, what would you have realistically gotten for Bernard McKinney is what you got to look at, right? Because wasn't there a pick swap also in that trade?
Yeah, we got the 6th and we gave him our 7th.
Okay, so essentially, you would if you do what I said, you would get 2 6 in a 7th round swap for Bernard McKinney is essentially how it ends up.
The only bad thing from that trade, in my opinion, is the fact that we restructured his contract.
Yep.
Shaq Lawson's. So we pretty much took on more money than it would have just been just to waive McKinney. But it is what it is. We took a flyer on Lawson. He ended up not panning out. But at least we gave it a try.
Yeah, so and according to if they trade him right now, according to Over the Cap, we carry a $1.7 million dead hit and we save 1.5. Not a big savings, not a big dead hit. And then you get a little bit of value out of them, on the back end. I don't hate the idea.
I was also joking about this. I mean, I doubt it happens because it was mostly a joke. But I was also looking at the other edge rushers, like Jordan Jenkins. He played for the Jets the last few years.
Mm-hmm. Trade him back?
Yeah.
Maybe. We've seen Nick has pulled some stuff off, right? Like Nick has pulled some crazy stuff off that, we didn't expect to happen. So who knows? I mean, you've got Matt Bazergan in the building who has a relationship with the guys in New York that can help out when it comes to something like this. So they've already got that established connection. Nick has just shown the ability to, make decent trades of decent value, something that we haven't seen since Rick Smith traded a 7th or a 6th round pick for Chris Myers years ago. We just haven't seen it. So,
or Easterby, who traded Eli Anku to the Cowboys for a 7th.
For a guy he just picked up, right? Like a guy he just signed. They claimed him off of waivers. Or he's a street free agent, and they traded him for a 7th round pick, or a 6th round pick. Like that was nuts, man. Like total, like they signed him and traded him like 3 days later. It was awesome. All right, linebacker group. Zach, obviously, Pierre Louis. God, man, such a hard group, right? Like, there's so many. Who do you think makes it? You think they carry 6?
Yeah, I got 6, but
okay.
So I have Cunningham, Kirksey, Pierre Lewis, Wallow, Grugier Hill, and Hewitt. I got those 6, but the ones that really impressed, I guess, or that they played decent, have been Cunningham, obviously, and he hasn't had the greatest preseason, but we know he can play at a high level. And also Grugier Hill, the first game against Green Bay. I mean, obviously when it just comes to just attacking the football, he's a really good linebacker. When it comes to okay, you gotta stay in your place and not penetrate the defense. I mean the offense, just try to get off your blocks. He hasn't been the best at that. So he's kind of been a mixed bag. But I think Cunningham, Grugier Hill, and probably Pierre Lewis, they're for sure gonna make it. But then when it comes to Kirksey and Hewitt, they haven't really showed me enough. At least throughout the first 2 games. Maybe this upcoming game he looks better. They look better, but I feel like it's nothing set in stone right now. Outside the top 3 options, Hewitt, those guys, they're gonna have to still earn their spot, or we might look elsewhere. For claim a player off waivers once because we brought in 2 linebackers this past week to work out. So for me, that kind of shows that if you're bringing in a couple players, you at least were considering signing them. I mean, besides doing your due diligence, but if you already brought in, because they also brought in 2 cornerbacks. They were still Douglas and forgot the other guy's name, but we brought in 2 cornerbacks. We ended up signing one, and we ended up acquiring one. So I feel Cacerio, whenever he brings in players, he's pretty much already kind of giving the hint, like, hey, I'm already looking at these positions either now or later, but I might add a player down the road, if not today, type thing.
Yeah, and they could be very well trying out guys for the practice squad already too. So like he'd just kind of be getting a jump start on it. Like, hey, we're gonna work you out. We're not gonna sign you right now, but just stick around. We're gonna put you on the practice squad. That could be a definite possibility right now.
Mm-hmm.
So then we roll into the secondary. Roby, yes, but he's suspended week 1. So Desmond King, Terrence Mitchell. Does Big Vernon make the roster?
I would say, yeah. I feel like, I mean, we all don't want him to, I don't know. If he's just a bench player, sure, go ahead. But if we're expecting him to start, then
yeah, no, I don't think he starts.
Yeah,
because he starts.
Yeah, so I have Hargreaves and then Holman and Carter.
So Tremont Smith and Cornell are gone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm surprised Cornell made it through this roster cut, honestly. And then Justin Reed, Eric Murray, Lonnie, and I think Jonathan Owens goes back on the practice squad where we had seen him before. He's not leaving Houston. Even if he doesn't make the final roster, I think he's a definite candidate for the practice squad, and would gladly accept a position just to stay close to Simone. At least I would, but that's just me. So else you got kind of the same group in the secondary or the safety position?
Yeah, for safety, I got Justin Reed, Eric Murray, Lonnie Johnson, and Terrence Brooks.
Okay.
And I was thinking AJ Moore. I feel like the last safety spot kind of comes down to between Brooks and Moore, and whoever has the better game, I guess. Or I mean, obviously, it's not just all based on the game, but the Patriots they've already cut AJ Moore once, so I mean, Cacerio, at least Cacerio did with the Patriots. So I could see it happening again here if he already brought Terrence Brooks.
Yeah.
Because he kind of did the same thing with Keon Crossan. He traded him once to the Texans, and then when he got over here, he traded him again to another team.
Yeah, Nick doesn't play around, man. It's like if he doesn't like you or doesn't see that you're a fit, he's gonna get rid of you one way or another, and he's gonna do it with zero remorse. So, well, cool. So that'll be. I feel like that's a really good roster, considering kind of like what we said last week. Backwards is forwards. It's a good foundation for them to build upon, and move forward. I've seen it a couple times in the chat. People asking about Lonnie getting traded, or I guess referring to Jeremy Fowler's tweet about Lonnie and Shaq. I don't see Lonnie getting traded. I think it would just be stupid at this point. Jeremy may be right. There may be chatter from other teams. Maybe other teams are calling and saying, "Hey, like, what do you?" But this is the time of year where GMs are making calls and looking to see, what they can get for, what they can get guys for, guys they feel like maybe on a roster bubble or down the depth chart that they feel like can start on their team, that they may be able to steal away from somebody else for an expensive pick. So I don't see Lonnie getting traded. Shaq, I could absolutely see getting traded, and I would be perfectly okay with it. You kind of feel the same?
Yeah, So you kind of want to talk about Cacerio, like, because I was gonna bring up that
Let's
sack
go.
thing.
Go ahead. We got a few minutes before we got to wrap it up. But yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Well, I was gonna ask you the first question. How do you feel about Cacerio? Throughout this point of the off season.
I'm really happy and very very pleased with what he's done. Okay, I never hated Nick Cacerio as GM. Back a few years ago when they attempted to hire him the first time, and the whole tampering thing went on, I was super disappointed that they didn't get him then. Right. So Nick Cacerio as a GM, I'm extremely happy with. My disappointment was with the process of how it all unfolded. But that's another story, and we've beat that to death in the past. So I think he's done a really good job. He showed up with, I think they were just shy of $9 million or right around $9 million in cap space. He has restructured guys. He has cut guys. He has traded out of bad contracts with Randall Cobb. He's restructured David Johnson, restructured Laramie. He's traded guys away. He's made some semi-decent trades from guys for other teams. He's been very active, and it's a pleasant surprise. It really is. I know that from the pedigree and the Patriot way of how things were done up in New England is that roster was forever changing. They were always looking at different guys. They were always claiming guys on waivers, and this and that. And so I feel like it's going to kind of be about the same path here. I put out the tweet the other day about what's his name, Coleman from the Patriots. They traded him to Seattle for a day 3 pick. A very similar thing to what he just did with John Reed, right? A guy that he wasn't going to make this roster. And he knew it immediately after that game that guy was not going to make this roster, and he found a team that was willing to take him. It's only a 7th round pick. It's a conditional 7th round pick. We haven't heard the conditions on it yet, but I was talking to, what's his name? He works for the Athletic and covers Seattle. Where's he at? I'll tell you right now. Mike Duger works is the beat writer for the Seahawks for the Athletic. And I was talking to him about it, and he goes, it very well may be the conditions of the pick may be that if John Reed makes the team, they get a 7th. If he doesn't make the team, the Texans don't get crap. I don't know if that's how it works. I don't know if that's allowed actually by the CBA. I think something actually has to change hands. It may end up turning into a pick swap. I don't know. Yeah. But we've seen that Nick is the type of GM that he's just going to go out there and he's going to, like I said earlier, he's not going to be pressured by the media. He's not going to be pressured by the fan base. And he's going to do what he and his front office people feel is the best for this team. And we've seen that since day one. So,
yeah. So I was going to say, like, at this point, I don't feel like one way or the other. Like, obviously, I agree with a lot of what you said about the hiring process. But besides that, putting that in the past, besides those restructures he's done, with the Lawson one at least, that one kind of backfired. The David Johnson one. Well, I'm gonna say all the bad stuff first, just to get it out the way. The Lawson contract, the David Johnson contract, the Marcus Cannon trade, because at least the Cannon trade, the Cannon deal, he has no guaranteed money.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess it can be seen as a negative because it opened up the door for Titus to move inside, which itself isn't a bad move, but it is what it is. And then I guess if you want to throw in the Ryan Finley trade in there.
Yeah.
So he's
a 6th round pick?
Yeah, we traded a 6 for Ryan Finley and a 7th. So it was a pick swap basically. Yeah. But I was gonna say, most of those deals I mean, money, you can get it back. Obviously, you would prefer to keep that money and have it roll over, as we said in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But so far, he hasn't really done anything stupid to the point where we are like, what the hell did he just do? Like, he just sacrificed the future, et cetera, et cetera. And then the pick wise, also he hasn't really, because the perception around here, or at least from what I've seen on Twitter, is that we've given up so many late round picks for players that may or may not make the final roster, and we're just burning up draft picks when that's not really the case. We've actually acquired more draft picks than what we've given out. At least, and that's what I kind of like about Cacerio, because I kind of had from the notes I've had here. We haven't released a single of our cornerbacks on our depth chart. The only players that have departed have been via trade. So Keon Crossan, we actually got a 2023 6th-round pick from the Giants. John Reed, as you just said, we got a 2023 7th-round pick. So in a way, we're already building up our draft of 2023, and we're getting back late round draft picks that we can probably use for another player if needed, or just draft a player when the time comes. So in a way, we've continued to build up for the future, and also we've gone to the point where Nick he's not really ever losing when he makes those trades, because he's in a way getting those draft picks back. Like in the Anthony Miller trade, we gave up a 5th-round pick, but we got the 7th from Chicago. And we used that 7th to get a cornerback from Green Bay. And then we also got we made the trade with McKinney and for Miami, and we got that 6th, and then we used that 6th to move up in this past draft. So I feel like it's a pretty interesting dynamic with how Cacerio's been using those late round draft picks to acquire players, but also acquiring draft picks in the same process. So we're not really ever in a position that we don't have any late round draft picks. We're still building them, even though we're trade. And I was also going to add that it was a pretty interesting stat that we've made trades, I believe, with 7 teams since Cacerio got on board with the Texans. We've made 2 trades with Green Bay, 2 trades with the Patriots, 1 trade with the Bengals, a trade with the Giants, a trade with the Seahawks, a trade with Miami, and a trade with Chicago. So pretty much 25% of the league. So that's pretty crazy, in my opinion.
That's wild, man. That really is. 7 teams. Wow. I didn't I really thought about it like that. In one offseason too. Like that's, and it's almost like it's effortless to him. He doesn't seem fazed by it. He seems very confident in what he's doing. Like he's got a very good grasp of everything he was brought in here to do. Regardless of how it went down, I mean, the guy he's making it work.
Yeah.
So,
and I'm not trying to say that as a good thing. Like, hey, like, look, we're making so many trades, but I feel like in a way, it's not really affecting our long term. And we're like, and throughout all those trades, even though we're probably giving up, late round picks for most of these players in those trades, we're getting picks back. So in a way, and we're using those picks to get more players or just keep them for future trades or future drafts. So in a way, we're not ever depleting our draft equity. We're kind of building up on it. So I've kind of found that interesting from our past GMs, who they've just, like Brian Gaine, the only trade he made that I can recall is the Demaryius Thomas trade.
Mm-hmm.
And then
It was
Bill
a
O'Brien,
very rare in-season trade that we haven't seen out of any GM, really. So,
and the only trade I can recall from Rick Smith was the Kari Lee to Chicago Bears that we got. I believe we got a conditional 6th for him, or a 7th. But in the past, the past few GMs, they haven't, not counting O'Brien, Trader Bill, but the past few GMs, they haven't really done any trades. And then, we got Bill O'Brien, but I don't really count him as a GM.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I mentioned it earlier, but like Rick Smith, he got Chris Myers for, it was a 6th or 7th round pick, and I was always a huge fan of that trade because he got a guy that in Denver was potentially not going to make the team, and they turned him into the cornerstone of that offensive line for years, right? Like the guy was an anchor for that offensive line for so many years. And so I'll forever be a fan of how that one went down. So, but yeah, it's nice to see the roster turnover has been, something we haven't seen ever. Been 70 or 80 plus transactions on this roster. And there's a lot of new faces. So,
and touching on that, on all those trends, I mean, I don't know. I'll probably say this as the one positive. I mean, besides the one we just mentioned, is the fact that since we didn't have a first or a second, Cacerio pretty much went bargain shopping for the players.
Yep.
And I have a few players listed. I mean, that were former high draft picks. Obviously, a few years down the road, that doesn't really matter anymore. But they still had the tools or the skill set that made them high draft picks at the time they were drafted. So, like Shaq Lawson, we took a flyer on him. He didn't end up panning out, but he was a first round pick in 2016. And then another draft pick in the 2016 draft was Jordan Jenkins. He was a 3rd round pick. And then going down to 2017, DeMarcus Walker, he was a 2nd round pick. Derek Rivers, he was a 3rd round pick. Russell Douglas, he was a 3rd round pick. Taywan Taylor, who's no longer here. He's IR'd. He's a 3rd round pick. Jaleel Johnson, he was a 4th round pick, but he was seen as a day 2 pick. Desmond King, he was seen as a day 2 pick, but he was a 5th round pick. And then in the 2018 draft, we got Anthony Miller, who was a former 2nd round pick, and then we got Jerron Christian, the offensive tackle. He was a 3rd round pick. So we've gotten quite a few players that they've been former high draft picks, day 1, day 2 for the most part. So, and they're still, I mean, somewhat relatively young. They're 25, 26. So they're kind of in that age where it didn't really work out for them in the first team or 2nd team. But in the team with the Texans, who we're not really doing much this year in terms, like we have the flexibility to see what these players have to offer if they make the final roster.
Yeah, and like Nick said at the beginning, before free agency opened up, it's got to be a lot of singles and doubles, and it's not going to be, he's not expecting to make, hit a whole lot of home runs, and I think that's exactly what he's done, and we got to respect it. So, I mean, it's not like he had didn't have a whole lot of cap space to work with. We had all the drama and everything else that's going on, so it's going to be. I think for what he's had the cards he's been dealt, he has done an excellent job, and his poker face has held up throughout the whole thing. So, man. So, but speaking of real quick, speaking of transactions, there was a big one today, and I want to just gotta highlight it real quick, man. I gotta highlight it real quick. Like today felt so good as a sports fan to finally have it go my way. Like literal tears, man. I cried literal tears when this happened today, when this went down. Cristiano Ronaldo is back home, and I was so happy. So all my my soccer, my football guys in the chat, y'all saw me going crazy on Twitter today when this was all unfolding, man. It was a wild day for sure. So
when you said roster transactions, I thought you were going to say Marwin to the Astros, but I guess.
Yeah, I mean that's cool, man. I hated that it didn't work out in Boston for him, man. I really did. I really wanted him to be a part of this team, and just for whatever reason, nothing clicked. He was batting just over 200. I think he was batting like 202 or something like that. Battled a couple injuries, and even Cora said that was one of the hardest things that he's ever had to do as a manager is let him go. But yeah, you know, he's landed back in Houston. He's on a minor league contract, so hopefully he can make the postseason roster and, you know, help propel the Astros to a, you know, another World Series. And they're getting beat up by Texas right now, though. I'm really, you know, my Red Sox are not doing that great as of late, but I never expected them to even be in the playoff hunt at this point in the season anyway. I expected them to be battling for the Orioles for last place, so I'll take it. So, what else you got, man? Anything?
I mean, if the same as always, if the listeners have any questions, we can open that up. If not, we can probably just.
We could take one or two. I guess I had guests just show up at the house unexpectedly, so I gotta wrap this up here in a second. If y'all got any questions, throw them in the chat real quick. We'll do our best to answer them. I think we did a pretty good job of answering them as they were rolling in, but nothing. Nobody's got anything. Hurry up and type, guys. How confident is Nick with these QBs? Trade for Cam? Hell no, we're not trading for Cam Newton. That would be no. That would be just the most foolish thing in the world. I mean, Beige, I am drinking Blanton's. I don't remember. I got to go look at the bottle. It's been sitting up on top of my fridge for forever, but it was good. I haven't had a drink like that in a while. So, thoughts on the coaching staff from Toby Maguire? I got to figure out who you really are, Toby. I mean, the coaching staff, I'm okay with it. I mean, I think people put way too much weight on the head coach and not enough look at the assistants. Like Pep Hamilton being here and Lovie Smith being here, that's huge, man. I think that's James Campen. Like those are three of the most like well-respected guys in the league when it comes to coaching. And I think that getting all three of them on one roster or one staff that's incredible, man.
Yeah, for sure.
What is your dream free agent cut or pickup? Oh, what dream free agent cut pickup? I don't know. I never really thought about it. How about you? You got one?
You got me stumped too. I'm trying to think about it right now, but
I mean, I never there hasn't really been anybody that's hit like free agency that I've just been like, oh man, we got to get them. I mean, I really liked the Phillip Lindsay signing. I'll be honest with you. Like what he was doing in Denver was awesome. I think they fell into a couple of other running backs that are able to do what they want, and they felt the need that they could move on from Lindsay. And I think the Texans are very fortunate to have him. I think he's a very good, very, very good running back. And I hope he's here for a few years. I really do.
The past few games, hopefully that's not a sign to what's to come, but I think tomorrow we're gonna get a better idea of, because like we said, the first team offense, they're gonna be there for most of the game. So I feel like we're gonna see a bigger sample size of what all the running backs have to offer.
Let's see. Yeah, I agree. I think so. I'm going to double back to Zero Tux. Tux, thank you for the $2, by the way. Confidence in the quarterbacks. I mean, he's got to be very confident with what they've got. They haven't brought in anybody for a workout. They're not linked to anybody as far as a trade or interest in a trade. But then again, we don't really know a lot of what Nick's doing behind the scenes. He's kept a lot of stuff very close to vest. I don't know if you guys have realized that. When Nick leaks information, it goes to one person. And I don't know if you guys have picked on it, but it's Ian Rappaport. It's the NFL Network. It's not going to anybody else. Okay, so that's, if y'all want to know what Nick's up to, you keep your eyes there. Okay, that's where it's happening. It's not Schefter. It's not Jeremy Fowler. It's not Jason Lockenfora. It's not any of these other guys. It's Ian Rappaport. That's his guy. So Jay Glazer too. There's some Jay Glazer stuff in there, but
Yeah, and also I was going to say for one more thing for tomorrow is that it's going to be a battle of the day 2 quarterbacks between Kyle Trask and Davis Mills.
yeah, I'm excited to see that. I really am, because I kind of like Trask. I thought he was. I really kind of was hoping they would go after him, but is what it is. Yeah, Philip Lindsay and Desmond King were definitely really good signings. They're very under the radar signings, I feel like. It kind of. I'm hoping it's a kind of like the year that when they signed Jonathan Joseph and Daniel Manning. I know those two are not like that. Those two signings were like way up here. They're more like right here, right now. But I feel like that's kind of what it is. It's like those are going to be the signings that are going to kind of help propel this team. So,
It's only been 2 games too. I mean, obviously, it's pretty funny that I'm talking about special teams, but the punter Cam Johnson, he's been doing pretty good the first few games.
Yeah, for sure. Nick trading for Mitchell Trubisky right now. God, I'll drive off a cliff. Please don't. Please don't. So, but man, I think that's it. I think we're going to wrap it up there. Thank you everybody for tuning in. And if you're listening to us and it's not live, thank you guys for listening in. I really do appreciate it. It means a lot. You guys, free ways to support us. Like the stream, share the stream, like our tweets, share, retweets, stuff like that. Check out our Instagram at Houston FB Pod, the main Twitter page at Houston FB Pod. Jair, as always, at JRLTU. On a Wade 3. See, James is, what is James at now? I am Young Ari Gold, or is he the bad guy?
I'm not even sure.
He's at Young Ari _Gold. Jordan Texans _thoughts. And then Patrick Storm to you. So thank you guys again. And we'll see how tomorrow goes. And yeah, that's it. See ya.